Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we'll be doing an updated Fiendsmith Dark World list. Now, as far as this deck is concerned, I really like it a lot because I feel like both of the different engines available to us very much complement each other, right? As the Fiendsmith stuff pretty much gives us like a very grounded, solid engine that we can always rely on whenever things go wrong, that pretty much at minimum is going to either bait all of your opponent's hand traps or end on a DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, which is honestly still very difficult for a lot of decks to overcome. And as for like the Dark World portion of the list, it's obviously very high variance. And if you're going first and you combine both those two together, you pretty much end up in a situation when your opponent is going to have an extremely difficult time being able to actually break your board. Now, if you try to go second, just like every other Dark World variant, this deck does tend to struggle quite a bit, as it's very much a going first type of deck, but you know, it is what it is, right? But yeah, with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and the first card is, of course, going to be 3 Genta Gateman of Dark World. This is literally the main consistency card of the deck, right? You just discard it, and then you're able to search your deck for any of the copies of the Gates of Dark World that you're playing. And then once you have the Gates of Dark World, you're going to be able to start discarding and drawing into even more cards until eventually you get to the point where you just have too many resources for your opponent to be able to properly handle you. And then, as if that wasn't already good enough, once this card gets banished, it's able to special summon itself back, which all you have to do in order to activate that effect is control a face-up Dark World card, which you typically will because you're going to have the face-up Gates of Dark World. Now, the only downside to Genta, though, is that it can only be special summoned once, period. So if you happen to bring it back with its own effect, right, that means that you're not going to be able to bring it back through the use of cards like Dugaris, Muckraker, Saryuja, you know, a lot of cards that you commonly see in like any Dark World list. And the same goes for the opposite, where if you happen to summon it through those guys, you're not going to be able to bring it back with its own effect. So, you know, just something to be aware of because it's, for some reason, something that tons of people tend to neglect, including myself at times. Then, to go with our 3 Gentas, we're playing 3 Snoww, Unlight of Dark World, which when this one is discarded, just allows us to search our deck for any Dark World cards. So, you know, just get rid of this, and then you're able to search your deck for whatever play starter or playmaker you may need. And then, for the final 3 of Dark World Monster, we're playing 3 Reign-beaux Overking of Dark World. So I was playing 2 of this in the previous build, but I decided just to bump it back up, and this is typically one of those cards that I'm constantly working on the ratios with, where sometimes I want to play 2, sometimes I want to play 3, and it really does depend on like what I'm trying to go for and what I'm trying to fit in, especially since every single deck I make is 40 cards, or at least it should be, unless I've made some kind of egregious error. But this time we're just going with 3, and obviously it does help, right? Like you discard it, and then its effect activates, and you're able to search your deck for any level 5 or higher Dark World monster except itself. But more importantly than that, you're able to bounce back every single face-up level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control to your hand in order to summon this card from the grave. So it's just a great card of just helping you recycle your resources to once again replenish your hand and just dig even deeper into your deck eventually. But yeah, 3 Reign-beaux, perfectly fine. Then for the other Dark World monsters, we're playing 2 Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World, which when this card is discarded, just pops a card on the opponent's side of the field, which genuinely doesn't really matter all that much because this is a going first deck, of course. But sometimes that effect does come up. But what we care about most with Grapha is its graveyard effect, where much like Reign-beaux, it bounces back face-up Dark World monsters in order to summon itself from the graveyard. However, it doesn't have the level 7 or lower restriction. Instead, you just can't go Grapha for Grapha. So I don't know where it went. There it is. So we have double Grapha, right? You can't just bounce back your Grapha to summon another Grapha, but everything else is fair game. So yeah, perfectly fine like that. And then for the final Dark World monster, we have our 2 Sillva, Warlord of Dark World, which once again, I am playing this one over cards like Gold, Lucent, or anything else, mainly because I enjoy the interaction it has with the Fusion Grapha, where if you discard this card off the Fusion Grapha, you basically still trigger the hand loop effect to force your opponent to put 2 cards from the top or from their hand to the bottom of the deck, which honestly, even if your board is mediocre, as long as you have Grapha on field and Sillva in hand, you're basically forcing them to start with, what, like 3 cards? So it's going to be very difficult for them to still overcome your board, especially if you actually are able to build it up. So yeah, Sillva, I love the card. Then for the Fiendsmith engine, we're going to be playing our 2 Fiendsmith engravers. You know, just discard it to search our deck for any of our Fiendsmith spells or traps. And when it's in the graveyard, you can shuffle back any other light fiend monster to summon it from the grave. As well as our 1 Lacrima, the Crimson Tears, which is basically just like a Foolish Burial for our Fiendsmith cards, and the 1 Fabled lurrie, which is typically going to be the main target that you're adding off the Fiendsmith tract if you didn't happen to draw it, which you probably will. But these 4 make up the Fiendsmith engine. Very small, very concise, but it has such a huge impact on the way that the game flows that honestly, it doesn't even feel like you're only playing these 4 cards because they really do so much. Then for the other cards that we're going to be playing, as our normal summon of choice, we're still going to be rocking the tour guide from the Underworld. if we were going for like the degenerate route, we would be going with like Gen and Ken. But because this is a little bit more grounded and I guess honest Yu-Gi-Oh, like honest in quotation marks, obviously, we're gonna go with Tour from the Underworld, and it still generates a lot of advantage because what you're gonna be bringing out with that is Buio, the Dawn's Light, and then we're going to be basically overlaying both of these into the Mellow Melody, the Brass Gin, which is the Exceed that you saw at the very beginning of the video during my introduction. And we're not going to be going for like the Versago line this time. I decided just to cut out that very high variance play because let's be real, if you draw the Versago, you just don't want to, period. And this is still more than good enough, but instead of Tour Guide having multiple different lines, we're basically just committing it entirely to the Fiendsmith stuff. So yeah, you go normal Tour Guide, bring out the Buio, link into the Mellow Melody, link the Mellow Melody off into your Fiendsmith Requiem, then your Buios will be able to activate to be able to search your fusion spell, which will just allow you to advance your game state even further. So yeah, really solid engine that just generates a lot of advantage. And then for the final monster lineup that we're going to be playing a small danger package just because we want to help round out the deck a bit. And you do sometimes find yourself in situations where you just need something to help you discard. So we got the 1 danger Nessie, the 1 danger Bigfoot, the 1 danger Mothman, the 1 danger Tsuchinoko, and the 1 danger Jackalope. You don't need any more than that. Like I said, if we wanted to build a danger deck, we would obviously commit more fully, but these are just there to help us enhance the deck instead. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion of the video. Now that we're on the spell and trap lineup of the video, the first card we're going to be talking about is the Gates of Darkworld, which we will be playing at 3. I will always be playing this card at 3 because it literally just says discard, draw, and that's literally the entire philosophy of the Darkworld deck. Like, yeah, you'll run into some people that say 2 is optimal because 3 bricks, but I mean, like, it really doesn't. The only time this card ever breaks is if your hand is already bad, so you were losing that game to begin with, if we're being honest. So yeah, this card, I love drawing, I love discarding. This card lets me do both, so seems like a no-brainer, right? Then, to go with our 3 gates, we're going to be playing 2 Dark Corridor. Now, this is always one of those cards that I talk about that's constantly fluctuating in ratios, as sometimes I play 1, sometimes I play 2, and on the very rare occasion I even play 3, and it very much depends on like how the deck is currently like built, right? As if, for example, for whatever reason, I'm not playing any danger monsters, then this card is an auto 3 of because you basically need to have something that just gets you a guaranteed discard every time. Or if even if like the danger monsters are like super diminished or whatever, right? But point is, 2 is perfectly fine. And it is unfortunate this card is a hard once per turn because that means if you end up drawing multiples, you can't do anything with the secondary copy. But even so, being able to add any Darkworld card, then discard any card basically guarantees that you have full combo for whatever situation you may find yourself in. So 2 is perfectly fine. And then that's it for the 2 ofs. And then for the 1 ofs, which you play quite a few, we have our Darkworld Ascession, which is our quick play fusion spell. 1 Call by the Grave to stop any potential dangerous hand traps from affecting us. 1 Instant Fusion, which is basically a secondary copy of Call by the Grave, as what it's going to be summoning out is Millennium Eyes Restrict. And then with the Millennium Eyes Restrict, you're able to stop cards like Ash Blossom, Draw on Lockbird, you know, things of that nature. And then we finally have also the Triple Tactics Talent, which if we don't have like a negate or whatever, we can at least look at our opponent's hand, rip a card away, and then proceed to hopefully fully combo off uninterrupted. Or if our hand needs like a little bit of help, we can also just draw 2. Or if you're going second, you can also take an opponent's monster. But let's be real, like I said, this isn't going first deck, so that effect probably isn't going to happen too often. Then we're also going to be playing 1 Mutiny in the Sky, which is the fusion spell that you're going to be adding off of Buio. And it literally just lets you fusion summon for any of your fiend monsters by recycling cards in your graveyard. So this card, pretty strong. Then we're also playing 1 Fiendsmith Tract and the 1 Fiendsmith Sank to basically just help round out the Fiendsmith engine whenever it comes to the spells, right? As the Tract is basically there for when our hands are like super broken or we just need a little bit of help as well, right? Like we can still go Tract, add Lurrie or Lacrima, and then discard a Darkworld card to trigger their effects. But if we're like scared of Draw on Lockbird, that's where something like Fiendsmith Sanct comes in, as we just activate our engraver, search our Sanct, and even if we hit by draw, it doesn't matter because we're still going to end on full Fiendsmith combo, as this is literally just Hornet drones, but for Fiendsmith. And that's it for the spells. And then for the traps, we just have the 1 Fiendsmith in Paradise, which allows us to basically have like another layer of interaction during our opponent's turn, as it's basically only going to be sending Fiendsmith Desiree, which is going to be a bounce. And when you combine that with the other cards that we're going to be playing, it's going to be extremely difficult for the opponent to obviously overcome the board. And with that, that's the main deck. Should be 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now that we're finally on the extra deck portion of the video, we'll be starting off with the Exceed monsters first, and the first guy is going to be Mellow Melody, the Brass Gin. which is literally just a generic rank 3 light fiend monster, which means that if you happen to open up Tour Guide, this is basically going to be your go-to guide to access your Fiendsmith engine. But even if like your Tour Guide gets negated or you don't have it, we still play a couple of other level 3s that just help us get access to it even easier, because we do have Buio that can summon itself from the hand, and we also have danger monsters in the form of Jackalope and Tsuchinoko, which happen to be level 3s that can just, summon themselves out as well. So it's not like we're going to be struggling if the Tour Guide gets negated, but it definitely makes it a little bit more difficult. But even so, the moment this card hits the board, you're going full Fiendsmith combo anyway, so it's well worth it. Then for the other exceeds, we're playing one number 62 Years the Timeless. We don't care about the boost effect, but the other two effects to either reborn a monster from the graveyard or draw to discard one are frequently used throughout the game, so yeah, very solid card in that regard. And then lastly, we have the one DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, which is going to be your end board piece whenever you go through the entire Fiendsmith engine. And it's literally just double Solemn Warning on legs, so yeah, this card pretty ignorant. That's it for the exceeds though, and then for the links, we have one Fiendsmith's Requiem, which is what you're going to be turning your Mellow Melody into, as it just makes this, and then you're able to access any of your Fiendsmith monsters from your deck. We're playing one Fiendsmith Sequence, which oddly enough isn't going to be used to typically go into the Fiendsmith extra deck monsters, at least for the fusions, right? Because we are going to be playing cards such as like Desiree, and we're not going to be playing Lacrima, but we're never going to be making Desiree, and because we don't play Lacrima, we're never making Lacrima either. But the other guys that we're going to be playing that all happen to be fiends, we are going to be going through pretty frequently, and they just give us a little bit more advantage to cycle through our deck faster. That's it for that one though. And then for the other links, we have Muckraker from the Underworld, obviously a phenomenal card that has some pretty big drawbacks in the form that obviously on the turn that it's summoned, it cannot be used as link material, and if you happen to use its effect to discard a card and then reborn a fiend monster from your graveyard, which it discards for effect too, so it will trigger your Darkhold cards, you're going to be locked into fiends for the rest of the turn, so that does limit you quite a bit. Not as much as like the regular Darkhold deck or the Danger Darkhold deck, but it can definitely be felt at times, so you just have to be a little bit careful when you're going for the Muckraker play. Then for the final link 2, we're playing the SP Little Knight as just our greatest generic link 2 ever created, and that's it for that. We don't play any link 3s, but for the link 4s, we have one Saryuja Skuldred, which is just like a generic link 4 that we can make to clean up our board, and we're constantly going to have fodder for it, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And as for what it does, because we're always going to be using 4 monsters to make it, we get to draw 4 cards and then put 3 cards that we don't want to the bottom of the deck. So that's a huge help for just getting access to cards that we normally wouldn't have. And then its other effects allow us to special summon monsters from our hand, and every time a monster gets special summoned to a zone that it points to, it gains 300 attacks. So just an overall phenomenal card. And then for the final link, we have the one Abaoku, the Lightless Shadow, which is also going to be one of those typically like end board type of cards where you make this, and then it has 2 very solid effects, right? So you can discard a card for cost, so it won't trigger your Dark Worlds, but you either get to reborn any of your lights or darks in the graveyard, which is basically everything, or you get to pop a card on the opponent's side of the field. So yeah, pretty good utility. So either it turns into an extender or it just turns into something to prevent the opponent from playing the game. So yeah, pretty solid stuff. That's it for the links though. And then for the fusions, we have the one Millennium Eyes Restrict, which is going to be our instant fusion target. The one Necroquip Princess, which allows us to basically guarantee that our Fiendsmith engine will always be able to go for a rank 6 play. We have the Duke of Demise, which you're typically going to be making through the Mutiny in the Sky spell card, but there are also situations where you're making this with Sequence, and it has 2 very solid effects as well, right? As on the field, it gives us an additional normal summon, which, great. And when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to add back any level 4 or lower fiend or zombie monsters. So this is great at just helping us recycle cards that we normally wouldn't, or that we normally would have a little bit of difficulty getting to, like our Gentas, like our Snows, like our Tour Guides, if we happen to just like discard them because we couldn't normal summon them at the time, whatever. But point is, this card, great, because like I said, extra normal, and it gets back our resource, which is huge. And then we're also going to be playing Aerial Leader, which is literally just Foolish Burial, but on legs. And the great part about Aerial Eater is that it pretty much guarantees that we're going to have access to either Reign-beaux or Grapha immediately, as we just summon this, Foolish those guys, and then we can basically turn on our Dark World engine, or at least guarantee that we can start bouncing back our Dark World cards. So yeah, Aerial Eater, phenomenal card. And then for the final 2 fusions, we have the Fiendsmith's Desiree, which we're basically never going to be summoning. This is literally in here so that we could take advantage of Fiendsmith in Paradise to have another interaction with the opponent. And then Grapha, Dragon Overlord, our Dark World, as our negate, but not really, because it just changes the effects of normal spells, normal traps, and monsters to you discard a card. And as mentioned previously, when you pair this card with something like a Sillva, you're going to be able to loop them for 2 cards, but a lot of the other Dark World monsters also have secondary effects, so as long as you have like a Dark World monster to take advantage of with this, you're going to be plussing pretty hard. And with that, that's the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!